A friend once told me, I have no idea how much money I'd need to retire. I just hope it's enough someday. He was 45, had been working for over 20 years, and had never once calculated the number that could buy him freedom. When we finally sat down and did the math, he was shocked to discover he was closer than he thought, not because he had a huge nest egg, but because his lifestyle was simpler than he realised. Most people work for years without ever calculating the exact number that could buy them real freedom. If you stopped working tomorrow, how much money would you actually need to live comfortably? Not a guess, not a dream number, a real number. The amount required to cover your lifestyle without depending on a paycheck. Surprisingly, most people have never calculated this number. They talk about retirement, they talk about saving, but they rarely determine the exact amount of money required to support their life. And without that number, financial freedom becomes vague, a distant concept rather than a clear destination. Let's start with a basic idea. Financial freedom occurs when your investments generate enough income to cover your living expenses. At that point, your lifestyle is no longer dependent on earned income. Work becomes optional, not because you suddenly became rich, but because your assets are producing income. This is where the concept of the freedom number comes in. Your freedom number is the amount of invested money required to support your lifestyle indefinitely. And calculating it is surprisingly simple. First, determine your annual spending. Let's imagine someone spends $50,000 per year on living expenses, housing, food, transportation, insurance, entertainment, everything included. Now we apply something known as the 4% rule. The 4% rule is a guideline suggesting that a diversified investment portfolio can sustainably support annual withdrawals of about 4% without running out of money over a long retirement. Using this rule, we can estimate the portfolio size needed for financial independence. If someone spends $50,000 per year, divide that number by 0.04, that's $50,000 divided by 0.04, giving $1.25 million. That means a portfolio of roughly $1.25 million could potentially generate $50,000 per year in sustainable income. That's the freedom number. For many people, the freedom number is smaller than they expected because freedom depends more on spending than income. Someone living on $40,000 per year might need about $1 million invested. Someone spending $80,000 per year may need $2 million. The higher your lifestyle expenses, the larger the portfolio required. This is why controlling spending plays such a powerful role in financial independence. Reducing expenses doesn't just save money, it reduces the size of the freedom number. Let's look at an example. Imagine two people both want financial independence. Person A spends $40,000 per year. Person B spends $80,000 per year. Using the 4% rule, person A needs about $1 million invested, person B needs about $2 million. That's a massive difference. And yet, the difference in lifestyle might not be dramatic. Maybe a slightly larger home, a newer car, more frequent travel. Small lifestyle upgrades can double the size of the portfolio required for independence. The math is unforgiving but empowering. Every dollar of annual spending adds roughly $25 to the portfolio you need to accumulate. Why do most people never calculate their freedom number? Part of the reason is uncertainty. Thinking about retirement can feel distant. Many assume they'll figure it out later, but without a clear number, it's difficult to measure progress. Imagine taking a road trip without knowing the destination. You might keep driving, but you'd never know how far you've come. Calculating a freedom number creates clarity. It transforms a vague goal into a measurable target. It also forces you to confront the gap between your current habits and your desired future, and that gap is where real change begins. How do people reach this number? The process is simple but powerful. Spend less than you earn, invest the difference, allow time and compounding to grow your investments. Compounding is the engine that drives wealth growth. When investments generate returns, those returns generate additional returns. Over decades, the effect becomes dramatic. For example, imagine investing $1,000 per month into a diversified portfolio earning an average return of 8%. After 10 years, you might have around $180,000. After 20 years, about $590,000. After 30 years, over $1.4 million. At that point, your investments could generate roughly $56,000 annually using the 4% rule, income that could potentially support a modest lifestyle indefinitely. Now, the 4% rule is a guideline, not a guarantee. It's based on historical market data and assumes a balanced portfolio of stocks and bonds. It works for most 30-year retirement periods, but it's not a rigid rule. If you're younger or want a higher margin of safety, you might use a 3.5% or 3% withdrawal rate. That would raise your freedom number. For instance, a 3% withdrawal rate on $50,000 of annual spending would require about $1.67 million. The exact percentage matters less than understanding the relationship. Your freedom number is your annual spending divided by your planned withdrawal rate. Once you know that, you have a target. Financial freedom doesn't require quitting work entirely. Many people continue working even after reaching their freedom number. The difference is choice. Instead of working because they must, they work because they want to, pursuing meaningful projects, starting businesses, working part-time, traveling. Freedom isn't about doing nothing, it's about having options. I've spoken with people who reached their freedom number and decided to stay in their careers, but the knowledge that they could leave at any time changed how they experienced their work. They became more confident, more willing to speak up, more selective about what projects they took on. The freedom number gave them leverage. Another benefit of knowing your freedom number is motivation. When progress becomes measurable, motivation increases. Instead of wondering whether your efforts matter, you can track your journey. 10% of the way, 25%, 50%. Each milestone builds confidence. Each milestone reinforces your financial habits. And habits are what ultimately produce wealth. I've seen people who were initially intimidated by a 7-figure freedom number break it down into smaller goals. First $100,000, then $250,000, then half of their target. Breaking a large goal into smaller steps makes it feel achievable. Now imagine someone calculating their freedom number today. They discover they need $1.2 million invested. They begin investing consistently. Every year their portfolio grows. Every year they move closer to independence. Over time, something interesting happens. Their relationship with money changes. Instead of spending automatically, they become intentional. Every financial decision becomes part of a larger strategy because they know where they're going. That's the power of the freedom number. It transforms money from something abstract into something purposeful. A tool, a system, a path toward independence. There's a hidden benefit to this calculation that few people discuss. When you know your freedom number, you also gain clarity on how your current choices affect your future. That new car you're considering, it adds to your annual spending, which increases your freedom number. That monthly subscription you never use, reducing it lowers your spending, which lowers your number. The math provides instant feedback on trade-offs. It turns vague desires into concrete decisions. Now imagine reaching that number. Your investments generate enough income to support your life. Your financial stress decreases. Your options expand. And suddenly work becomes a choice instead of a necessity. That's the quiet power of financial clarity, and it begins with one simple calculation. The freedom number most people never take the time to discover. But the people who do often change their financial future forever. If you've never calculated your freedom number, I encourage you to do it today. It doesn't require a financial advisor or complex software. Just write down your annual spending. Divide it by 0.04 or 0.035 if you prefer a more conservative estimate. That's your target. Then look at your current investments. How close are you? The answer may surprise you, either by showing you're closer than you thought or by revealing how small changes in spending can dramatically shorten your timeline. Either way, you'll stop guessing and start knowing, and knowing is the first step toward freedom.